All right, family and friends, you know we are back for the new edition of the Reimagine You Live Podcast. It is your girl MG. Here we are for season 3. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate all of you guys and girls for being a part of the show. You guys are the ones that keep it lit. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And you guys know that every time you come into the lab that we always have a new and an exciting attraction. And this was going to be over the top. Y'all know this one's gonna be over the top because this is just what we do. We got to make it better and better and gooder each week. So before we jump in, y'all know we got to do a little housekeeping. So if you haven't subscribed already, make sure that you do. Tell your friends, your family, your colleagues, your neighbors to make sure every Friday we drop a new episode. So hit the bell so that you can get your notifications because I don't want you to miss it. It's always something good. You know, we talk about change being a choice. And with that, how about we jump in? Because I just want to make sure we maximize our time. So today I've got an amazing guest in the lab with me today. And you guys know this is one of those guys, those amazing guys. Kevin Dyson is going to be in here with us now. I already told Kevin, and this guy he's a receiver, so he already know I'm about to throw in the ball. Kevin, you ready? You ready? Yes, Kevin. We're going beyond the bio because that's what we do. I'm gonna act like I'm a quarterback today. Kev, you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Beyond the bio.
Go. Oh man, Kevin Dyson, by way of Utah, graduate of University of Utah in 1997. Say that out loud. Many times feel like it's a long time ago. Former first-round draft pick of the Tennessee Oilers / Tennessee Titans. Played 6 years in the National Football League. Had multiple injuries that led to an early retirement at the age of 30. I embarked on a journey in education where I received 2 master's degrees and then my 3rd postgraduate degree, a doctorate in education leadership and practical practice. I am presently a principal at a high school in suburban area just south of Nashville in Williamson County schools. And father, husband, coach, mentor, all the above. I try to do a little bit of everything. Even now, as you know, I'm trying to be an author too. So I'm doing a little bit of everything, like podcast, radio, TV. Man, I just one of those people that try to grow and learn and different facets, man, and challenge myself every step of the way.
Yeah, but listen, that's what you do though. And you know what's cool about it is that you do it with so much class and so much finesse and so much power. Like you do that. You do that. I love it. You know,
being a person that's driven by goals is hard because you never sit your butt down. You know, I'm always off to the next thing. You know, and at some point I'm closing in on 50. I say that loud. I'll be 50 next year, and it comes a time where I may want to just golf every day, but right now I still got the energy, so I still try to make a difference every day.
You know what though? They say that the people who get stuff done, that they're the ones that you give stuff to, right? Yeah. Like you know what? You aren't the type to just sit around and play golf all day. You know, you get that in when you want to, but you got a lot that you're doing. But you know what? It's good that you do that because the people that I know that even are retired, they still doing stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Like they still doing stuff even in retirement. So let's talk. So let's just if you don't mind, we just talking today. If that's all right.
Yes.
So when you know what I'm thinking about, as you said that all these different things that you have done, so let's talk about 1997. You came out of the University of Utah. Went into the NFL, you did that, and then went into, now you are a principal of a high school.
Mm-hmm.
right? So Kevin, kind of talk to us a little bit about that journey, right? Like just, like from the NFL into to being a principal and everything kind of in between. Like, did you think that was going to be your path?
No, really, I even go back. My journey probably started even before that. Raised primarily by my mother in Utah. My father was in Vegas. My mom had one rule when it came to us playing sports, and that was we had to maintain a 3.0 or better, a B average or better. And of course, I challenged that, but I'm the oldest, and that challenge was met with resistance. My mom took basketball away from me, and I learned a valuable lesson through that. You can't skip steps. There's a process that comes with everything, and you have to earn everything you get. And I think my mom, whether she realized she was instilling those attributes to my adult life, it has stuck with me because she took it away, and eventually she did give it back, and I was progress monitored and all that kind of stuff, and I kept my grades of above 3.0 from that point on. But it wasn't like I was smart. I never considered myself smart. I was just doing it because I had to, because I had a dream to play professional basketball. And I wanted to go play professional basketball. I wanted to buy my mother a house. We had been from house to house, apartment to apartment, things like that until I got into high school or junior high. We finally had something, but I'm not even sure if we was owning that. I think we were renting that one, to be honest with you, sure. And it just was one of those things. It was a lifetime dream of mine to be able to provide that for my mother. And so that was my whole focus as a kid, was to go to the pros. Well, I eventually made it in football. I made it to the pros, and my career didn't go like I planned, right? You get drafted, especially as a first rounder, you think you can go to multiple Pro Bowls. You're going to maybe have a chance at hitting Canton and be a Hall of Famer. Like, that's the dream, right? And in between all that, you win some multiple Super Bowls. Like, that's the ultimate dream as a professional football player. Well, I was met with injury after injury after injury. That at the point I was 30 years old, and the opportunities were coming fewer and fewer, and so I had to figure some things out. Do I keep chasing this dream of playing professional sports, or do I pivot and do something different? And it just, if I waited a little longer, I can't sit up here and say that I wouldn't have chased that dream a little bit longer. I just think the time period in which I made that decision to transition, I was fatigued mentally, I was fatigued physically, and I was just over the whole process of not knowing what's next, the process of rehabbing a body part and not knowing this is going to affect my career. And I just decided I was going to do something different. And that difference was, I thought I'd coach, and it just didn't pan out for me to coach. I was met with a lot of resistance in that for one reason or another. But I found a niche in secondary education. I was coaching at a small private school and teaching. And I realized the impact I can have on young men, especially through football. And I just planted my flag right there in coaching, and decided that's what I was going to do, is coach secondary school. And if a job professionally came available, then I look into it. But from that point, I was like, well, I don't even know what I'm doing. So I decided, I wanted to go to school. And the phrase I like to use is, I went to school to be qualified, so I was justified. And the reason being with that was, I knew doors would open for me. I knew opportunities would come for me just because of my past. From professional sports, specifically in Tennessee, in the Middle Tennessee area. And I wanted to be justified for any opportunity that came. And the only way to be justified is to be qualified. And you have to know what you're talking about, know what you're doing. And so I went to school to learn and learn a trade. And when I got there, I learned that I like learning as an adult. And I have grown immensely since that, just because I found the capacity to retain information. That as a kid, my sole focus was sport, and I just was getting stuff done just so I could go play sport. Where sport was done. There was no next level sports anymore. I had done that, and so I enjoyed learning. And that's kind of how that journey started. And circumstances being what they were, I didn't mean to get 2 master's degrees. It just kind of was.
Just so happened.
Yeah, I got the first one. I thought I was going to work in private school and be an athletic director and coach. But then going to public school, and in order to teach in public school, you got to be certified. Again, that's five, so I'm qualified. So I went back to get my teaching certification and my teaching master's. So I had a master's in leadership and a master's in teaching. And so that's why I ended up with 2 master's degrees. And then the doctorate thing just took fire. I called the NFL, and I didn't know about this until I made a call and found out they have a grant system through the NFL Trust where former players can apply for grants for a multitude of things, education being one. And I applied for a grant, and they pretty much funded my whole doctorate. And I had no excuse. If I didn't have to pay for the majority of it, was my excuse, So I went ahead and challenged myself, and here we are.
Here you are. You know what? That's interesting though, because even with you saying that you had to. Your mom said, hey, you got to keep a B average, right? So that you can even play sports. And then here you go, because if you had to keep a B average, Kev, like you really had to work to keep your grades up.
Well, Michelle, I did a lot of grade jockeying, you know what I'm saying? Like I had chemistry, and then I had home ec. You know what I'm saying? So you get the C in chemistry, get the A in home ec, they average out to a B. So I was smart.
You were smart. You were smart. You knew how to do it, right? You got it done. But you also, I heard you say that you learned that you like learning.
Yeah.
Picking up some new skills, and that's one of the things that you do. And then you kept going, right? And here you are, 3 degrees later, doctorate to boot. Come on now, that's awesome, and everybody can't do that.
Yeah, I've had former teammates and friends of mine that asked me, what did I do? And I said, man, I just had to humble myself and start over. That's one of the hardest things to do when you get out the world we were in as far as professional athletes, where you're of 1% and you pretty much go back to being quote unquote common folk. And what do? Man, I had to start over. I had to go back there and learn a new trade and learn a new skill set. Now, there's some things you can do entrepreneur wise, stuff like that, but that's only minimal as far as fulfillment. I needed something. I think we all need purpose, right? You got to find something that fills that void of what ball left. And I'm not going to sit here and say that education completely filled that void of playing ball. There's nothing like sitting in a stadium with 60, 70, 80, 90,000 people cheering or cheering against you. There's nothing that filled that gap ever. And so I'm not going to sit here and lie and tell you it does. But as far as purpose and getting up every day with a purpose, something that keeps you going to get better and thrive at, I have found that. And I can't say that everybody does. And I have something that has made me get up every day trying to be better. And my being better is not only making myself better, it's trying to make people around me better. And that's adults and kids. And that challenge in itself is why I enjoy being a principal, is because every day is different and it presents different challenges every day. And so that is what I mean by finding a new passion and new purpose. And again, nothing's going to replace ball. There's nothing like that. There's nothing like coming out that tunnel, having your name announced at Super Bowl. Like that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so nothing will replace that. But like I said, I'm 49, be 50. They got to have something. I retired at 30. That's a long time to not have purpose. So I'm happy that I have, and hopefully I continue to inspire and go and change, that old cliche, change one life at a time, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? But I think that is so good that you say that, because a lot of times people don't find that, like they don't find that purpose, and are still living in a past, or, still trying to find something, that they can do to give back. Even when you were talking about, coaching, and being able to do that for a little while, and that wasn't necessarily the thing, but here it is now, you're able to kind of pour back into other young men, you
Yeah.
know, and kind of helping to build them up. Kevin, what have you found? What was the thing that you would say that you were given that you now make sure that you kind of give back to, you know, these young men that are kind of coming up behind you? Because I'm sure with, you know, being a professional athlete and these young guys, because they're, you talk about being part of that 1%. You know, you were a first round draft pick. Here
Mhm.
you are with a doctorate degree, you know, that you are in that 1%, you know. But
Yeah.
there's so many young guys that probably have a dream of, you know, hey, I want to go to the NFL that
Right.
I would never make, because there's probably, I don't know exactly what the statistics are of how many people actually even make it
Yeah.
to the NFL that dream about it. But you know, what are some of the things that you kind of share with those young men, you know, that want to get there, or you know, have that dream and stuff? What do you share with them?
Well, and I'll start by saying this first. I still consider myself a coach, even
Yeah,
what I do now. That
yeah,
is part
absolutely.
of who I am, and I think even when dealing with adults, whether it be
Mhm.
parents or teachers alike, there's that coaching aspect. So that goes back to your question. It was like telling kids, I still had that mindset of a coach, and one primary role for a coach is how to help somebody be better than they were the play before, or the day before, the week before, the month before. And I
Yeah,
think that's the approach: is what can I instill or say that will help this kid, this person, be better
yeah,
than they were when they came in here. It doesn't always work
absolutely.
out that way.
Hmm.
Every kid or every adult doesn't necessarily is not necessarily receptive to what I'm selling. But I think what's helped me is my unique experiences, life experiences I've been able to be relatable, because
Yeah,
I have been
yes,
an athlete. I have two different careers, two totally different careers,
absolutely.
and I've been able to relate to everybody, and then my upbringing and the
Hmm.
uniqueness of that is also something that I can bring in too, because I am relatable in that aspect too. I
Yeah,
wasn't born with this what that saying, born with silver spoon in my mouth. I
silver
wasn't.
spoon. Yeah,
So I learned from my mother how to grind and work hard, and see my mom fall out on the couch after she got home from a long day at work. I've seen that, so I
yeah,
understood taking care of things and working hard. But so what I tell kids, man, whatever I need in that moment, but I do draw
yeah.
upon my experiences as a player and coach.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. You know what? And people appreciate the practical side of people,
Mm,
right? You know, like
yeah,
that being authentic, just like being like a real dude, you know,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
And I pride myself on that very thing, just being approachable, being humble, even when people bring up the my my past, whether it be the Music Miracle or the fact that I
Yeah.
played, or they watch me. Now I get kids every now. My dad said he watched you. My dad has your card, or my mom said she
Mhm.
went to this game, whatever it may be, which also dates me. But it also but it also gives me an opportunity to smile and have that conversation with a kid from time to time. But I'm
Yeah.
trying to take that stuff in, because a lot of time I dismiss it.
Mhm.
Just that's that side of me that's kind of like, I don't want to talk about that because that's not me anymore, so to speak. But it does give me an end. It does create
Yeah.
like a place of conversation. I got a couple kids that'll come up to me and say, they'll tell me their team Rams or whatever, or Patriots, and I'll say tighten up, because that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
it's fun to get some playful bantering out of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you know what? You had some very memorable things you brought up. You mentioned the Music City
Yeah,
Miracle. So you know we got to talk about that a little bit, because and we got to talk about it a little bit. You know, so you have been part of NFL history, right?
yeah,
Like that's a big one. How does when you think about that, Kevin, and how the mark that you have made in history, you know, listen, I'm married to an NFL like guru. Like he knows all, you know, like I don't even know how you guys keep all the stats and everything in y'all's brain about all the things that have happened, but I know that's a huge milestone for you, and the 25th anniversary is coming up next year,
yeah.
and you're gonna be. sharing and talking about this, and we're gonna get into that too. But what does that mean to you? And kind of when you think about it and the history of it and everything, what does that do to you on the inside? How do you mark it?
You know, I think in professional sports, people identify with maybe 3% of the players that they're actually watching, right? And those 2 or 3% are the stars on the team. And even a smaller percentage of that are the ones become Hall of Famers, right?
Yeah.
So there's only about 50, I'll just throw a number. It's about 1,500 people in the history of 100 and something years of football, 105, I think 105 years of NFL. There's just over 1,500 players that have played. And there's 1,500 players each year that have played that are enshrined as Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
What that tells you is every year, over 100 years, now teams have been added, but we'll say on average, there's about 1,500 players in the league at any given year.
Yeah.
That more often than not, the people playing are role players. They're not the superstar. They're not the ones that they're buying their jerseys of. And the people that they're not buying the jersey are role players who make the team go, in the sense that they help those Hall of Famers who get the credit, rightfully so, because they're special, and they're special for a reason. But the role players play their role so that those star players can have success. And that is the nature of professional sports. It's not the stars who they are, and rightfully so, and they're special and they're right. But you can't have a team without the rest of everybody else. And I happen to be a role player. And unfortunately, with the injuries and stuff like that, I feel like I left a lot of meat on the bone in my career based on the injuries that I had. But I was a role player, and I like to believe when I was healthy, I fulfilled my role. Yeah. And the Music City Miracle and the 1 yard short, well, you can't necessarily say I fulfilled my role on that one because I came up short. But I would have loved to have a Hall of Fame career. I would have loved to have been playing injury-free throughout my career, but that wasn't in the cards for me. But I get solace on the fact that not everybody that puts on that crest on their chest, on their shoulder, is a Hall of Famer. And there's a reason for that, because those guys are special.
Yeah. You know what though, Kevin? One of the things that I think that, in the time that I have known and gotten to talk to you and learning more about you, even your career and things like that.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I find is key, because just like you said, everybody plays their role, right?
Yeah, right.
And you have shared and shown how important it is to play that role. You know what I mean? Like everybody's story, and what comprises Kevin Dyson. So I'm really excited about, you're going to be putting out a book, coming up, like to really talk about, who you are, and not only the role that you play on the team you was on, but also just kind of who you are as a person, which I think is dynamic. So you want to talk a little bit about what's going to be forthcoming? I'm excited about this for you.
Well, again, being goal oriented and goal driven, I thought it was similar to getting my doctorate, right? Like I never thought it was something that I would accomplish until I did it. And so once I did that, I'm like, man, I can do just about anything I want to do. Let me see if I can do this. And so becoming an author was a challenge that I felt like, let me see if I can do it, and do it primarily on my own merit, not having a ghostwriter or anything like that for the most part, right? For pretty much 98% of it. And so, or even more than that. But anyway, and so I took it as a challenge, and for this one is just like, I wanted to see if I can do it. And I thought, I get asked a lot about my transition and how I became a high school principal. Now, there's a level of sharing, of vulnerability that I'm putting in the book, but there's also some things that, it has something to do with the story, but it's not something I need to share about the story. So
Yeah.
but I'm excited because I get asked questions about my transition, about how was it being a professional athlete, how is it being a high school principal, and challenges between the two, and then to relate my challenges as a young man, as a young adult, and now as a grown adult, and the challenges that I face within my own self, my own validation, my own self-worth, my own identity, my own struggles with depression or finding a new purpose in life, being able to share some of those stories that were what I was getting a lot of questions about. And I said, you know what, maybe that's the direction I need to go and write this. So it's a story about me, but it's a story that I hope in people transitioning, trying to find their purpose and purpose in their life, and maybe have some stuff sometimes when they've been down. I'm hoping that the story that I tell is relatable, and people can be like, man, I can do that. I can start over. I just talked to somebody that was debating on getting their doctorate, and I'm like, go do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's something on your mind and your heart, you say you want to do it, don't have regret. Go ahead and challenge yourself. Go do it. Because at the end of the day, nobody can take that away from you. And for the rest of my life, I'll be identified as Dr. Kevin Dyson. And that's no small feat. And that's things where I'm like, man, I did that. And whether I retire from this next year or it's still something that nobody would ever be able to take away. So I hope what I wrote encourages people. I hope what I wrote is relatable, and I hope it gives enough of my story where people get an inside glimpse to who they talk to on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. I mean, it's so much in there, and it's so much of you that's in there. I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised, and about who Kevin is as a person, like all of these different diasporas of who you are. And you talk about like all the facets of your life, that the NFL career, I'm sure that people will be interested too, because you and Randy Moss came out in the same draft class, right? And the comparisons and stuff that you dealt with that, and navigating that, and and that transition from that NFL career, and as you just talked about, and moving into education and how to do that, and I think that's going to be big. And then even you mentioned it too, like managing that, like mental health around those career transitions too, and facing, kind of the feelings, you know, finding purpose and things like that. I think that's going to be big. Yeah, it's going to be a good book. So people are definitely going to have to tap in.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. There's a level of vulnerability that I could have gone even deeper into, but some of those stories are not just mine to tell. I'm just giving you a service level version from my bird's eye view of how it affected me. But like you mentioned, me and Randy Moss, and again, we talked about a second ago about he's a Hall of Famer, and rightfully so. He was special, but I was drafted before him, and those expectations, I carried that burden, and I didn't even realize I was carrying them all those years because of the shadow he casted over me. And it affected me to the point where at times it probably affected how I was playing, because I was trying to meet some expectation that I don't even know if everybody else was putting on me, but I was putting on myself because I was trying to match up with somebody else that had no bearing on my life. And it was something I cycled through and learned through, and it took me to get into my 40s to realize it. But it's just a part of the story that a lot of people didn't know that I was going through during that time of playing ball, or even into adulthood.
Yeah. You know what? I think that I'm glad you said that, Kevin, because a lot of times there's this expectation that a lot of times we do put on ourselves, that a lot of times nobody knows but us. and we do, we carry a burden, and until somebody, because I think you were on a podcast and you were thinking and somebody mentioned uh imposter syndrome. We start talking about it,
Yeah.
it became a thing that people were talking about, and it's like, oh man,
Yep.
yeah,
And that
and
helped me with the direction of the book. I was like, oh, there's it. There it is.
that's
And
what this
it's,
is.
yeah, because I've never thought I was that interesting to talk about as far as doing an autobiography. But I know I have some different and unique experiences than the average person, around of 1%. Like
Yeah,
the average high school football player that gets a D1 scholarship is like less than 2%.
yeah,
So, and it might be about 1% for that, especially now
I
with
think
all
so.
things going on. So, with
Right.
that being said, the fact that I was of 1% or 2% at that point, and then to be 1% or less to get
Mhm.
drafted in the first round, you would think that was enough. But the pressures of being a professional athlete and performance and meeting expectations that come with
Yeah,
that, people don't realize the burden that a lot of these guys carry. So a lot of times I'm sitting there empathetic and looking at some of these guys who I know are first round picks and how they're
yeah,
feeling. Now, they may have the facade that everything's all fine, but they're putting that pressure on themselves every night to perform to
yeah,
a certain. Now, eventually, you probably get over it,
yeah,
but early on, young age, when everybody's talking about you, and eyes on you, they're trying to meet an expectation, whether it be realized or unrealized. And that
yeah,
was something I didn't realize about myself going
yeah.
into it that I can appreciate now
Hmm.
as a grown adult and able to share. And it was interesting how I even came to this realization was doing my own podcast and talking to other former professional athletes,
Yeah.
one of which was in the same draft class as me, who was
Mhm.
the third receiver taken in that draft. And he had talked about the stress level, the depression level he had of the expectations from when he was drafted. He was drafted after me and Moss. And
Really?
yeah, and Marcus Nash is the name, and he spoke on it. And I was like, dude, I was going through the same thing on the other end. I was the first one taken. You're feeling that same pressure as the third one taken. So
Wow. Yeah.
so it's just been a journey to discovery with me over the last several years,
Yeah.
and it's actually I think helped me as a leader in some
Mhm.
respects to understand. I think Robin Williams said it best, and I'm paraphrasing. He said, "Man, just you never know what people are dealing with when you meet them, so just be kind." And I'm paraphrasing his quote,
Yeah.
and it's so true. You don't know what that person you come in contact with, what they're dealing with on a regular basis, or as soon as they leave your company, or as soon as they leave work, or before
Yeah.
they got to work, or death, divorce, all those different things. They come in and put a smiley face, and then
Yeah.
who am I supposed to be as this leader if I'm on you, and I don't know what's going on? I'm just being negative. So being gracious and sympathetic as a leader and having that understanding of how stuff was affecting me, and my coaches don't know, and they just da 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 da, and
Yeah.
no
Constant.
fault of their own. And I don't
Right.
blame them for anything. They're supposed to push me, but what I was saying is, and it's not really a but is that we just never know what people are dealing with. So just be gracious and humble
Yeah.
in those experiences, those interactions, because some
Yeah.
people are really dealing with some stuff.
Right. You know what, Kevin? I'm glad you said that. It brought this to my mind, because just thinking the new NFL season just started. We were
Yeah.
talking before we came on about, the for this first week, right? Like our last week in the first week. We in week 2 now. But if you could go back and talk to your younger self at the beginning of at the beginning of your NFL career, what advice would you give him? You know,
Wow. It's funny. Several weeks ago, I literally was thinking this to myself.
really.
And I kid you not. And I was like, man, what I would tell that 23-year-old kid is when I got to the league, I was so appreciative.
Yeah.
And I didn't, and my rookie year, I didn't care about anything like being drafted for Moss. I just wanted to play. And I
Mhm.
played like it. I was
Yeah.
confident. I played like it. But when I became a bigger contributor and expectations went up,
Uh-huh.
then I was looking for the pressure. I was looking for meeting those expectations as
Mhm.
opposed to just playing.
plan.
And I think that's the difference between the really good ones and the great ones is they get to that level of, I don't give a dang what you say, a lot faster, if not from the beginning, than some of the others who put that added pressure on themselves in the beginning, and then they learn their process down the way. So what I would tell my younger self is, man, just go play ball. You can't control what anybody thinks. You can't control if that teammate yours feels some type of way, that coach, that GM, the guy watching you on TV, the one in the stands. You can't control what people think. Only thing you can control is yourself. And this is the same thing I'm telling you I would tell my younger self, is what I've been telling people since I retired, whether you've been my own brother, the kids I've coached, and teachers I work with and inspire. I tell that the only thing you can control in any circumstance is you and how you respond to that. And you can't control what people think, say, or do. And so, and you just respond accordingly. And I really wish I would have taught myself and worked through that as a 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28-year-old man moving into my 30s when I retired.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good stuff. That is good stuff. That's good stuff. All right, Kevin, I know the time be going so quick. I'm like, I can't believe how quickly this time. No, this has been good. This has been good. All right.
I appreciate you having me. Let me tell my story.
Yeah, no. So I am honored that you are even sitting here with me. I'm gonna have to bring you back when the book comes out. You got to come back in here and tell us all about it, and we're excited and thrilled. But before you leave, give us 3 things that you would tell. The best advice either that you have gotten or that you would give. 3 things for change makers, those who are making changes in their life, transitions. What are the top 3 things that you would give them?
Oh, man. 1, be gracious in your leadership. Understand that we all have things we're going through, and just be gracious in that. Be humble. Be humble through it all. You're going to have good times. Everybody's going to sing your praises at some point. But there's always going to be that person in the background that's saying you could do better or do more. And just appreciate the time you have. Tomorrow is not promised anyone. And one thing I tell my teachers, man, the most valuable asset we have is our time, and making sure you maximize it and appreciate it. So if you need a moment, take a moment and just recognize, man, don't let people monopolize your time, because, again, we don't get it back. Now, we spend a majority of our time with other people's kids. So when you get the time spending with your own, try to do your best to be in that moment and spend that time with them. And I'm saying that, and I need to get better at that my own self. I tend to be like my mom, because I'm somewhat of an introvert in a lot of respects. So by the time I get done, when I get home, I'm emotionally wiped. And I just want to lay down and go to sleep, because I've been up early and working and everything else. And so all those things I'm saying to you or saying to this podcast, I'm saying it to myself. It's just a reminder to even myself.
Yeah, no, I love it. Kevin, I appreciate it. Kevin Dyson, he is amongst the 1%. He is a doctor as well, former NFL player. Kevin, thank you so much for being on the show. We appreciate you, salute you, and look forward to the book when it comes out, because you're going to be adding to your accolades, author, right behind all of those other things about you. So thanks again for being in the lab. I honor you, my brother.
I appreciate you, Shell. Thank you for having me at any time.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, thank you for tuning in. This has been the Reimagine You Lab podcast with the Reimagine strategist, MG. Thank y'all for tuning in. And don't forget that every Friday we drop a new episode. So make sure that you hit the bell to make sure that you are subscribed so you get the notification when a new episode drops in. Thank you for being here. And until we meet again, God bless you. And I'll see you next week.